So what's the big problem with wealth creation? How do people like us, who didn't inherit a boatload of money, who are investing and building wealth from our own blood, sweat and tears, how do we invest in a way that gives us remarkable results and become financially free before retirement age? I don't know about you, but I am sick of hearing from wealth gurus and experts who don't walk their own talk and prescribe strategies that are a one-size-fits-all approach. For self-made people like you and me, I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be superhuman or already wealthy to reach financial freedom earlier than 65. This is the Alternative Investing Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It is awesome to have you here. This is a very interesting conversation specifically that I want to have with those of you out there who have businesses that you are either on the cusp of or thinking of selling in the near future, or if you are someone in the business world who thinks they might want to sell their business at some point. So in my career, both as an accountant and now as a mentor to a lot of high net worth investors, I get the privilege of speaking to dozens of business owners who work their asses off to create a business that not only gives them a really phenomenal income stream, but which ultimately they hope will form an asset that they can sell for a pretty high ticket price. And I guess the reality that I'm also witnessing on the other side of that is a lot of business owners who strive to create a saleable asset and then are very disappointed by the results. Because the problem, as I see it, is that people go into business because they want to work hard, play hard, and be rewarded financially. And what a lot of business owners only realize after they've already sold is that high income that they may have enjoyed for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years evaporates completely after sale. And there's a lot of implications to that. And then on top of that, even if they receive this really great lump sum, most of them don't have a clue what to do with it. Some of them will suddenly stick their head into, well, you know, what can I do in the traditional investment space, and are very disappointed. Vast majority just let the money kind of sit in some kind of relatively liquid asset and then find themselves eating the cow, meaning, you know, just eroding that balance over time. And I think what a lot of business owners have expressed to me about what they're deeply worried about is that without the business, you know, apart from that loss of purpose and direction, that the financial freedom they thought that they would get hasn't actually manifested, and they now find themselves in this very awkward position where they don't really have the energy or inclination to start again or to get back into business, but the runway to kind of, you know, needing to be financially independent is also very, very short. So, you know, where I want to go with this today is I think there is an opportunity for those business owners who are in that fortunate position that they think they one day will have a saleable asset to kind of get on the front foot and harness that premium income while they still have it, build that exit ramp to financial independence long before you sell, so that if and when you do get that lump sum, the business sale becomes the cream, not what you depend on to reach financial goals. Now, I want to tell you about a client of mine who has a very successful business. They're a tradie. They have a regional business, which is known as probably the number one in its industry for the region that they're in. Hugely profitable, big teams, lots of assets, a phenomenal marketing system behind it, a phenomenal business system behind it, and very clearly an asset that, if they wanted to, could potentially be sold today at a reasonably high ticket price, and then they would walk away with this big fat check that they could deposit into whatever they want. Now, the hesitation that this client of mine has had is very much associated with, number one, the uncertainty around, well, what would they do with that lump sum? What happens when that income isn't there anymore? Are they still going to be able to maintain their lifestyle? And so these were all the conversations that we had as we first came together, you know, like, I don't want to run this business anymore. I'm worn out. I'm tired. I've been doing it a long time. But at the same time, recognizing that there was going to be a shortfall between where they would land once they had sold their business, and that the only option they were going to have was to maybe deposit the money into some dividend paying shares or, maybe some additional property. They had a couple of properties already. But the upshot was they weren't going to be able to, sustain the lifestyle that they wanted and be out of the business. So, there was a whole cocktail of very emotional decisions. And the impact that I could see that all of this was having was that this particular business owner was pushing themselves beyond a reasonable level to a position where they were really burnt out. They were disenchanted, and there was almost a discussion around, do you just run that business into the ground and just extract as much income as you can from it? Because that might actually give you at least a little bit more than, that big ticket sale that they'd hoped for so long. And look, the reason I'm telling you this particular story is that I think it's the common story. People think that scenario is rare. People think that their own situation will be different, that by the time they get to the point that they will sell, that they'll just get all this money and it'll be more money than they need. And in fact, the reality is starkly different to that. So I want to kind of give you some other ways to look at this, because I genuinely think that the framework to have in your mind as a business owner is that, yes, selling your business is one asset that you should develop in order to potentially get a lump sum at some point. But I also want to give you this insight that you can't just rely on that, or it's dangerous to just rely on that. There is a fabulous report put out by the AES Nation Group, and what they report is that 9 out of every 10 business owners say they're interested in selling. The more disappointing statistics are that 5 out of every 10 business owners are actually dissatisfied with the results of their sale. So that means that more than 50% were dissatisfied with the post-sale result, especially the financial result. So, the process of getting there was extraordinarily painful, and that's pretty much universal. But more than 50% said the valuation wasn't what they hoped it would be. The agreed upon sale price wasn't what they thought it would be. The tax hit and then the residual proceeds of what they got in their pocket was less than they were expecting. And so, of the group that they interviewed, I think there were 35% that were sort of borderline satisfied, and only 12% regarded themselves or reported themselves as highly satisfied. So when you think about statistics like that, you need to understand that the odds are actually stacked against you. I think what you need to really think about is, well, if the odds are stacked against me, what can I do to not only tip the scales in my favor, but hack the system, frankly? So I want to go into 3 things I think that you should be doing if you are a business owner, full stop. But more importantly, if you are a business owner who doesn't want to find themselves in a situation where you are relying 100% on the sale of your business in order to achieve the financial independence that you want. So number 1, you have to set yourself up for financial independence before you sell. Otherwise, you are relying on a Hail Mary miracle. And so what that means is that both from a mindset and mental bandwidth perspective, you need to be thinking about investing outside of your business as early as possible. Now, this is a difficult one for business owners because often the thought is, let me take any dividends that I'm not, using on my lifestyle and reinvest. And I think, there's no question, I will not argue with anyone that often the highest ROI is inside the business. But at some point, as soon as is feasible, you need to start taking money off the table and investing and building your investable capital in other assets that will either grow over time or ultimately deliver you cash flow. It's really, really important. I've seen too many business owners go through their entire business career and get to a point where they are within a stone's throw of some kind of retirement or transition, and they have nothing else. So don't be one of those people. The second thing I'm going to say here is I think it's really important to recognize that when you're a long way out from wanting to sell your business, you can afford to put your money into deals which give you growth, like the assets that grow over time. But I think when you start to see the idea of a business sale on the horizon, whether it's the next 3, 5, 7 years, you have to start focusing on income streams outside your business. And this means you have to demand demand an asset class that is going to deliver predictable, sustainable cash flow. Now, unless you are someone who has been investing in traditional property or shares for a very long time, typically those asset classes will not give you the result that you want for decades, unless you have an enormous amount of money to throw in it. And just to give you an idea, like property right now, most people are suffering from negative cash flow as a result of high interest rates. But even in, low interest rate environments, the best case scenario is if you had $10 million of net worth in real estate, maybe you'd get 1 to 2.5% net cash flow. And frankly, for net worth of property real estate assets of 10 mil, that is absolutely pathetic. And then, maybe if you were owning a $10 million large portfolio of dividend yielding shares, maybe you'd get somewhere between 2 to 4%, depending on what it was that you're investing in. But either way, pretty crap results overall. So unless you have an enormous amount of capital to throw into those traditional assets, you need to think outside the square. And what a lot of business owners that I work with are doing is they're embracing this outside the box thinking and looking for alternative ways of investing. Now, the asset class that I'm a huge advocate of is alternative investments backed by real property. Now, this is not the podcast that I want to go into what those strategies and deals are, but please understand that the point of me bringing this up is that if you know that saleable asset or business sale is within a stone's throw, you have to turn the dial away from growth and more towards that income. And that is how you can transition out of your business and feel zero pain about that loss of business income. The third and final point that I want to make is that it's really important to decide if you want to be the lone wolf when you figure this stuff out, or whether you want a GPS that will help you leverage your time and resources. And the point I'm making here is that, when I was younger and I had time on my hands, I wanted to figure everything out myself. I had time. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was happy to do that. I was happy to get the cuts and bruises because I needed to kind of build that skill set on my own. I couldn't afford to pay others for it. As I became older and wiser, I realized that I was a bit foolish in my thinking. And, where I sit right now is if I want to learn a skill set, if I want to know about an asset class, I just go and I find the person who can help me get the results, and then I pay for it because I want massive inflections in my net worth. I want the wealth results I have to kind of exponentially grow, and I will not be able to achieve that if I try and figure it out on my own. So what I'm saying to you is that you have to decide how quickly you want the results, and then decide if you're prepared to pay the piper to get that outcome. Just to pull this whole podcast together, the odds are stacked against you that your sale of business will deliver you the financial independence that you might hope that it does. I am interested in creating a mission to help business owners, to help a new breed of business owners who are seeking financial independence and aren't going to need to rely on that cash lump sum from business sale in order to live a life where they can have the impact that they want. Guys, I hope you found this really useful. I can't wait to catch up with you on the next episode. Take care. You've been listening to the Alternative Investing Podcast. If you're feeling frustrated that despite doing everything right in the property investing playbook and you're no closer to financial freedom, then head on over to incosiwealth.com to learn more about how you can use alternative investments to catapult your investing income and blend strategies to shave decades off your timeline to financial freedom. See you on the next episode.